Cool. I see quite a few people still joining, but I'm anyway going to start by constraint because we have to close on time. Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another London Power BI user group. This is super exciting because today it's our special 5th anniversary session, and we have Amir. I hope I'm going to say it right. Amir Netz and Will Thompson with us today, and this is a special AMA session today. And I am Prati Kamasani. I started this user group 5 years ago, and then James joined.
Yeah, I joined a couple of years ago, thankfully before we got into lockdown. And in fact, yeah, so Prafi started the user group with 4 others 5 years ago. And in that time, we've grown to more than 5,000 members. So thank you, everybody. And thank you for sticking with us through lockdown as well. In that 5 years, we've had over 50 speakers present more than 75 sessions, having kicked off in May 2016. But our most frequent speaker, although it was a close call, is Chris Webb, who has presented 5 sessions now for us. So that's one every year. And in fact, he has done the May session every single year since we first started 5 years ago. And also in that 5 years, it's worth pointing out to Will Thompson that we've had 2 logos, not icons. But we're still virtual. It's a real shame to have to do this session virtually. We really miss seeing you all. I can't wait to get back into London. I think we'll still try and do the sessions virtually as well, so we can continue to see all of you as well from the rest of the world. But we really can't wait to see you all in person and share a beer and pizza with you as well.
Yeah. And I really miss seeing all the smiley faces and all these things. So a big thank you to all our attendees. As James said, thank you for sticking with us. And thank you for everyone who joined us virtually. And thank you to our sponsors. Thank you, Owen, Nigel Frank, and previously Skills Matter for providing that amazing venue where we had like amazing sessions, great beer, and nice pizza. So all those things. So thank you to every single one. And thank you to our speakers, because without them, it would have not been possible. And we are very, very fortunate to have hosting some really, really great speakers. So let's see how it all went. And we are super duper excited to have Amir and Will Thompson with us. And on that note, cheers everyone, whoever has a drink. And depending upon wherever you are, to our 5th anniversary. And so, well, we'll kick off this Ask Me Anything question with Amir and Will. So we'll start, maybe Amir and Will, you could start introducing yourself and we'll kick it off.
Yeah, actually,
sure.
Do introduce yourself.
Sorry,
Amir, just to interrupt, I'm just gonna put some ground rules down for everyone just to make this flow a little bit easier. If I could ask you to please keep your microphones turned off unless you're asking a question. Likewise, also with the webcams, just so we get to see the people who are asking the question, and Will and Amir as well. And if you want to ask a question, use the Teams raise your hand function, and Prafi and I will give you a shout when it's your turn, or alternatively pop your chat in the window, and we can all keep an eye out for it and make sure that we answer it. So thanks everyone. I will stop talking now and I'll hand over back to Amir, who I rudely cut off, sorry, to introduce yourself.
Sure, thank you, James. I am the CTO of Power BI. I'm a technical fellow at Microsoft, and I've been at Microsoft for 25 years and doing BI all this time. So products that you may have known from past lives, like analysis services and reporting services, things that I worked on. And in the last 7 years, it's all been Power BI, Power BI, Power BI. And it's been amazing, amazing journey, and love what you guys are doing, and really looking forward for having that discussion and answering your questions.
I'll do a quick intro as well.
Thank you, Amir.
Will Thompson, I'm currently a group program manager for the Power BI creators space. So anything you do in Power BI desktop or in the web, if you're creating content, creating reports, or doing data modeling and data ingest, that sort of stuff as well. I've been at Microsoft not quite as long as Amir. It's been about 14 years. I started off in the UK in our sales org. Started off as a SQL Server technical specialist and into the BI space when Performance Point came out. I was like, oh, there's a new product. I should go learn that. And transitioned onto what was Power View, Power Query, PowerPivot when they came out, and moved to the engineering team in 2012. So a little bit before Power BI became a product, and I've been on the Power BI team pretty much ever since. I had a little 6-month stint when I was implementing Power BI internally, building some dashboards and reports for some of our internal teams, and then came back to the engineering team after that as well.
Oh, thank you, Will. How are you finding doing a virtual session for us instead of actually being in here?
I love to be there in person. I sorely miss traveling anywhere, but particularly back to the UK. Obviously, I've still got loads of family over there and friends that I've really missed catching up with. It's been weird with the family thing because obviously being 4,500 miles away for the last 7 away, we got into Skyping and talking every now and again over Skype remotely anyway. But there is something different about 18 months without seeing my parents. It's really bad, and obviously 18 months without seeing any of you lot in the community as well. So it's almost as bad.
Oh.
Yeah, I really miss, I can say I'm not missing commuting to work. It's not something that I'm missing at all. And I think it's kind of interesting because I just read a survey the other day that about 70% of the people are really not looking forward to returning to the old thing. They're looking at various combination on the spectrum of the new thing, the new way of working with the old way of working. Some want to stay at home, some want to do a hybrid, but only 30% really want to go full time to the office, which is interesting. I think it kind of applies to me as well. But missing the events, missing the connection with people, virtual events are just not the same. They're just not the same. So really looking forward to this. The thing seems like we see the end, the light at the end of the tunnel. I hope a year from now we'll all be remote memory and we'll be back to seeing each other in person.
Yeah, totally. Totally. On that note, we have questions in the chat. So, Anthony, do you want to ask your question yourself, or shall I just say it? Okay, I'm gonna take this out.
Sorry, I was just trying to have dinner at the same time. So, trying to combine everything all in one go. So,
well, you enjoy your dinner. I could ask you if you want.
Yeah, what I wanted to find out is any release date in mind as to when Automated Insights is going to come out? Because I've sort of had, it seems to be a really cool thing and something that I know some of our clients, I've sort of mentioned it and they're really interested in when it's going to come out.
Yeah, it's very, very exciting what's happening with Automated Insights, kind of bringing the insight directly to the business users without having to author things in advance, just looking at the report. I don't know how many of you had tried it, and we're really looking forward to seeing how this will fare in the market. We generally try not to be hardcore about exactly when things are coming out because things often discovered at the very last moment, and we want to fix them. We want them to be as close to perfect as possible when we announce GA. I would say end of summer, I believe, is I would say amorphous target. Don't hold us to it. But that's kind of thing that what I recall the team was talking about. But it could take longer. It's really all based on feedback. It's one of the things that we love so much about the cloud model is we get, we release a feature and we learn from the users. We learn what works, what doesn't work, what people, we get the feedback from so many sources. And then we just continuously iterate until we get it right.
Well,
great. Thank you. Should we go to Lutz next, as you've got your hand up, and then we'll go to Greg after. Lutz, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, at Build it was said that PowerFX is the write-back language for Power BI. While I'm really happy to hear that you're focusing more on write-back, that's a really, really important business part of the process. I'm kind of concerned that it would divert from DAX or so are you concerned at all about PowerFX or not?
I'm a bit confused. What are we talking about? What is the thing that will undermine DAX?
Let's just say PowerFX. So PowerFX is a complement to DAX. It's not that there's one that would subsume the other. PowerFX is the language that predominantly is powering Power Apps and Power Automate. There's an integration point of how we can combine. So if you want to do that write-back solution, like you're saying, having a Power App that can write into Power BI and can push data into a database that Power BI is sitting on top of. But it's not like, hey, PowerFX is going to become this query and expression language. It's very much not designed to match the complexity and flexibility of DAX for expressing, the data sets and managing in that kind of functional language kind of way.
Yeah, I want to make sure that everybody is on the same page here. We don't have a plan of replacing DAX with PowerFX. PowerFX is really more belonging to the Power App side rather than the Power BI side. Now, will we ever do something with it in the future? Maybe. Frankly, we haven't even had this deep discussions about it. So nobody should get distracted here about PowerFX and what its relationship with Power BI.
Thanks, Amir and Will. Greg, did you want to ask your question?
And may I say that if you ask a question just like Greg, turn on your camera if you can. That would be awesome. I'd like to see the faces.
Super. Thanks, guys. So yeah, my question is probably an age-old one. Why should we use Power BI Premium over Azure Analysis Services? I think my biggest concern is I'm building a model for a customer soon. It's going to be 300 plus measures, so it's a lack of source control, and then performance implications as well of the model for the end users. Is there any of those? And then the third part of the question, sorry, would be around. I totally forgot those two for now. And I'm back to the last bit in a minute. I totally forgot the last part.
That's a great question. So I would say several things here. Originally, Power BI Premium started its life almost like a licensing construct. Instead of having every user being licensed with its own user license, we allowed you to just buy cores, and then you can give Power BI to any number of users as long as the capacity you bought is sufficient to support them. That's something that you cannot do with Azure Analysis Services because you can only license the backside of the BI system, which is the query processing, but you still have to have front, end user licenses for everybody else. That's number one. Since then, a lot of things happened with Power BI Premium. And Power BI Premium has added lots and lots of features that just don't exist at all in Azure Analysis Services. And with Gen 2, other things are happening because in Gen 2, we also allow you to, we actually don't hold you to a physical machine anymore. We allow your workload to spread across a cluster of very powerful machines. We're actually going to be around GA time, we're going to have P5 machines power every capacity that you have. Even if you bought a P1, there's a P5 behind in Premium Gen 2 that is going to run your queries. So it's going to be faster. You never have to worry about slowdown whether it's overload and when the system starts getting overloaded. So it's an extra feature. The your hands off. You don't have to worry. We smooth the processing load over 24 hours. So you don't have to worry about conflicts with querying versus scheduling of refreshes. So there is a lot of things that are happening with Power BI Premium that Azure Analysis Services will never match. So I think that overall, if you're looking at the total cost of ownership, and especially if you also look at the front end licensing, Premium is an awesome deal. We did some math that on average, a premium user is, a premium user is something like less than $4 per month. That's kind of how much it's actually costing the organization. So it's a very, very cost-effective solution, especially with large deployments. Does that make sense, Greg?
The second comment was about like control and high-end enterprise BI project kind of management. And to that end, Premium and Azure Analysis Services, they're both running AS. With the XMLA endpoint for Power BI Premium, you can use all those tools and techniques that you would against analysis services in Premium as well. So all that good stuff that Amir was talking about, you can take advantage of that without changing your processes too much from Azure Analysis Services.
And we're getting to the point, and we are very, very close. And features are being released almost every month, where there is not a single feature in Azure Analysis Services that is not available also in Power BI Premium. Now that the XML endpoint are GA'd, we ended backup and restored just a month ago, and so I think query scale out is the last one, and even that one is in the works. Okay, so basically there is no feature that you're going to miss in Azure Analysis Services when you move to Premium.
Awesome, thank you. I guess it's a GitHub side of things. Sorry, like being able to connect up to GitHub, and is there a way of doing that at all, or would that be?
Yeah, same way you use the in Azure Analysis.
I'll look into it. Thank you. I guess my third part of the question, and then I'll be all right. Sorry, guys. It was the around the desktop file and bringing it in. So obviously, when you load into a desktop file, is there ways of obviously when you loaded lots of data into a huge model, how would we then ensure it doesn't get too slow on your laptop locally?
I think the way that people usually do this is like loading part of their data there as they're doing the model development, the last month or the last 3 months worth of data. And then you do the deployment, and then you parameterize something. You can say, okay, let's go back and now do the refresh for all of the history of data. That's typically what people end up doing. Obviously, for the larger deployments, then you get into incremental refresh and all the other techniques you can do for managing those data sets.
And the deployment pipeline features are really helping there. And we're seeing amazing adoption of deployment pipelines right now. It's people really liking them, and that's exactly the purpose. So you can have a development environment with partial set of the data, and then you can move test and production environment with a full set of the data.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Greg. Some great questions there. Right, who have we got next?
I think it's Jeff next. Jeff raised hand.
Do you want to ask your question, Jeff?
Oh, hello. Good morning. Assuming it's this Jeff and no other Jeff.
It's definitely you, Jeff.
I think, yeah, it's definitely you.
I'm going to ask kind of a meta question, which is, when can we expect to see a bit more love on the ideas side? Particularly things like, I mean, you guys know my issues there, but particularly things like just the ability for users to be able to see hot ideas is a classic example. We used to be able to see the top ones. I understand that you can still, Amir, because you guys talk about watching hot ideas bubble up the stack. Users can't. There's a button on there, but it serves as up this very same view as top ideas. And why this matters is it gives ideas visibility. Any comments on that? Who owns the ideas site for a start?
Yeah, so there's when we moved to the platform, the reason that we moved off the user voice platform and moved on to something that's actually running on Dynamics, excuse me, it's a Dynamics-backed system. We kind of brought it in-house, two reasons. One, so that we don't have the third-party dependency, and there are some other compliance reasons for that. But the second thing was that then we've got a very direct line to the people who build that platform. And there's a PM over there called Pervin, who I think you've been in touch with, Jeff. And he's actually been really responsive when we've had these comments. And certainly in the very early days when we were sorting through all the authentication issues there were and getting everything set up, he was really, really helpful. And so hearing this sort of feedback, I speak to him fairly regularly. I will go and take that feedback to him and make sure that hot ideas section is a bit more useful. I think a meta point about that ideas forum in general, I hear from a lot of people that we're losing a bit of trust in it, both the community and internally as well. I do want to make sure we're regaining that, and we see it as a place where you see traction. When items go on there, you see it moving, you see people actively voting on it, and you see us actively responding to it. I think we can do a better job there, and I'd like to make sure that we use it as a place to have a conversation about why features are important to you, specifically what you need from it. Because as Amir said earlier, the engagement we get from the community and the feedback we get from you is so important to the way we build the product.
And I will tell you that I'm regularly going to the ideas forum. I'm looking at ideas and I'm trying to figure out ways to make some of them happen. We're at the same stage of the product. I love the old days were so fun because we had so many ideas people had and so many ideas were easy to implement. What's left now in the ideas forum are not easy things. So it's not like we can knock, let's take the next 10 and just knock them out of the list. That each one of them is a lot of work and a lot of investment, and so we just cannot move as fast as we at the very beginning, where there are a lot of easy ones, low-hanging fruits. But I'm super familiar with the ideas. I'm looking at them all the time. I'm asking the team, is there any way we can go after this or after that? And so you guys should know that this is not, when you vote, it registers and people are talking about it, and it really factors very deeply into our plans.
I think barely a week goes. Top ideas?
I'm sorry?
Say that again.
Can you folks see the top ideas? I mean, that's this real simple thing, right? Surely you must be able to serve up a list just showing what is the top rising ones.
Exactly. So I'm concerned that hot ideas thing isn't working properly, because we do have a view of that. We suck all the data into Power BI and we do our own internal reports on it, obviously. And we have a dynamic thing like what's hot this week, how many votes were received this week on particular items, and that's kind of how we see the newer things. I don't know exactly what mechanism the Dynamics pages use to sort those, but I'll go chase up with that. Now, I saw another couple of comments in here about this from just while we're on it. Colin had mentioned something about how many votes it needs. It's not like, so as Amir said, we go and just look at anything and everything. There's 20-odd thousand ideas on there. We can't read every single one. We look at the ones with the highest number of votes, 7,000, 5,000 votes. The top 20's got kind of something like that. But we can't just say, okay, we will look at everything over 100 votes, because that would be a huge number. We tend to just work down from the top and usually look through the first, I usually look through the first 2 or 3 pages on a regular basis. So I cover maybe the top 30 or so items. So it's more like what's in the top rather than a certain number of votes. And then the other comment was about consolidation. And yeah, I agree that needs some work from us just to go through. And we do it on a relatively ad hoc basis in the kind of, as we're either looking at those top items, we'll go and search, oh, you know, I'm looking at a particular thing about data-driven measure labels. I'll go and search for all of the other ones that mention that and do a consolidation on an ad hoc basis. Or Amir sends me an email saying, hey, here's an interesting idea. Why don't we go and look at whether we can do it? I'll go and say, okay, let's search for some related keywords and see if we can consolidate them. But we don't do it on a consistent, regular basis, and we could certainly do that better.
Thanks. Come on, Amir's saying this is an idea from Jeff. Don't encourage him.
Well, thank you, Jeff. And so next question is from Gopa, and I just want to mention it's quite a few questions actually lined up. Just to say, cool. Gopa, do you wanna ask you a question? Gopa, come on.
Before we start, I noticed that Lee Smith also asked a question, but Lee Smith has his camera on, pointing, I guess, at the ceiling. I don't know, because we see this gray background with a dot of light.
With Lee Smith, yeah. Maybe Lee.
So maybe
there we are.
There it is. Hello.
I'm sorry, you're on mute, Lee.
You're still on mute.
I'm still on mute.
Lee, you're on mute.
Sorry, Lee, you're on mute.
How about now?
Yes.
Yes.
Would be recorded as well. So my question was about the Office Suite integration. Basically, a lot of my users want the ability to create PowerPoint slide decks for possibly for external use or internal use, Word documents with integrated visuals, all refreshable. There is a third-party tool that will do this, but I'd rather not buy it. I'd rather Microsoft provided that and gave a bit of seamless integration between the visual element of Power BI and the Office Suite. So I don't know what your take on that was.
Yeah, Office integration is top priority for us, and you'll see a huge investment we made in Teams, and we all, I guess, Teams, it's a runaway success, and all of us spending hours upon hours during the days in front of Teams. Excel, that's a second, and you'll see, we constantly add more and more features. We have some really exciting things down the pipe with Excel. PowerPoint is the next one. We actually have an active team working, and we are engaged with the PowerPoint team. Our goal eventually that it will become native PowerPoint feature, so that it's just like you can insert a YouTube video, you can insert the Power BI report, and actually have some really cool stuff like shared theming and stuff like that. So we really have some really great ideas. I would, this is a few months down the line, but it's not a year. I think it's less, it's months down the line. And then the Word is not there yet. We hope there's some new framework that Microsoft announced called Fluid, and I think that's what it's called, Fluid. That is like the new OLE, object linking and embedding, and it's not. So Office is building it, and they haven't. They're still kind of evolving, and eventually, when we have that coming in line into Office, then putting Power BI inside all of Office documents will be much easier. But we are just. It's probably a year away before that framework is reaching maturity. That's my guess. But I will say we're not waiting for that for PowerPoint. Certainly not waiting for any work that we're doing with Excel and Teams. But I think Word would have to wait for that. Outlook will have to wait for that, and so forth.
No, but that's a great answer. Thanks very much for that. Thank you.
Awesome.
Great. Thanks, Lee. Mark, regular for the London Power BI user group. Mark Lunt, did you want to go next? And Lee, would you mind just turning your camera off, if that's okay? Thanks.
Hi, thanks, James. Thanks, Will and Amir. Yeah, so mine might be quite a specific question, but it saves me from having to raise it as an idea, so I hope you can bear with me. We actually we have like a master data set that has lots of reports built on it, and one of those is like a KPI report. And what we really want to do is build like a really seamless app-like navigation. So we have a report with KPIs on it, but then we want the users to be able to go down into those individual sections of the report. But what we found, we've ended up with a PBIX file with many, many pages. But really what we want the ability to be able to do is to click on a button and actually move from one report to the other. And I don't know if this has ever come up, but the ability almost to have a button that will allow you to go from one Power BI report to another, but whilst passing those filters. We're just trying to build this like app-like experience. We've got this gorgeous looking dashboard, but at the moment we're having to keep it all within one Power BI file. So they can go and look at orders, they can see this is the number of orders, this is your number of returns, this is your number of customers. We'd like them to be able to seamlessly navigate between all of those, but without having to go to individual reports and change their filters.
You can set up drill through in the same way that you can do drill through from page to page. You can do that across reports as well. It takes a little bit more setup because you've got to say, hey, this report is going to be like a target for the cross report drill through. Yeah, Alex have just pasted links into how you can do that. That was actually designed to like take some context as well from report to report. So I'm selecting a particular region or product line, whatever it is, and drill through as well. So yeah, that should let you do it.
Yes.
So that would involve the user right-clicking on a data point and actually selecting drill through.
You can do that, or you can set up. You can attach a button to it as well. You can attach a button to it, so or you can have that drill through action linked by a button. So it's just click a thing rather than having to right-click and do that. Yeah, a bit more obvious for the users then.
Okay, great.
And as Matt's just called out in the chat as well, you can add parameters onto the query string, can't you, to create a button with a URL to another report? Yeah. The only disadvantage would be it would open up in a new tab.
Yes, I think that's one of the other challenges, it opening up in a new tab. So I don't know if anyone knows of a parameter or anything that we can use to stop it from opening up another tab, because again, we have a welcome page on our app, like a nice, business formatted welcome page that says, these are the reports within your app. But it'd be great to be able to just click on one of those buttons and actually take you to that report, but they do open up in a different window.
The last thing that I've seen some people do is if that welcome page is static, you can do that in a Power BI app. So in the workspace, you can have all your different PBIX files, have a static page that's like your welcome page, and then it's just navigation to a different artifact in the app that takes you to the details.
Okay, great. That's some things we need to go from research. Thank you very much.
I mean, I've seen one example where I won't recommend it. I didn't like it, but what they did was they kept Power App and they embedded Power BI in Power App so they could navigate within different Power BI files. I would not do that, but if you want.
Great, thank you.
Cool. So there is one question from Gopal Kumar. It's about, he said I could ask the question. So one of the big issues we face in Power BI desktop development is the waiting time for loading of Power Query steps, especially when there are some complex steps. Can we see any improvement in this area? Just to add to the question, this happens even when we bring in part data from data flows.
It's a tough one. And I think that, I think some of it will resolve. I don't know if we're ever going to resolve some of these things on the desktop, but there are some really exciting things that we're working on in the service, allowing authoring in the service. And there you're going to have significantly more compute and capacity available to you to go and build complex and large things than perhaps what your desktop can allow you to do. So I would say that's kind of directionally. We're not, we don't have any news about the desktop being improved in that space. Maybe we'll have some other stuff.
Yeah, there's one small thing that we're doing. The M containers, the actual instances that run the PQ engine, There's currently a limit on how much memory they can use desktop, and or the number of containers that get spun up in desktop. We're putting in a little registry key that allows you to customize that. It's a very kind of use at your own, not quite use at your own risk. It is supported, but obviously if you add more of those, it's going to take more memory, and so you've got to balance like how much RAM you have on your machine. So if it's that you're hitting the limits of those containers, but your machine has still got RAM overhead, that might help. But if it's a problem of, well, I'm doing complex transforms, and so it's just eating up all of the RAM on box anyway, there's not anything that we're planning to invest in around that. But keep an eye out for that in the next month or two. It might help.
Cool. Thank you. And I think next, Alex Dupler. Do you want to ask your question, Alex?
Yeah. Hello.
Cheating. This is cheating when a Microsoft employee has to come to a user group to ask questions of us.
Oh, really? Okay.
Indeed. So I wanted to ask Amir some like big picture questions. One, lately I've been staring at Vertipack Analyzer a lot, and I've become obsessed with this idea of dictionary sharing, which is that I have a lot of big keys. So I'll have 2 dictionaries with the same data in it. Have you guys ever thought about having, when we know one or more columns have the same namespace, having them share a dictionary? And then the other question is sort of even more big picture, which is like tabular was sort of predicated on changes in computers where we had enough RAM to put everything in memory. What do you think the next change in computing technology is going to sort of drive the next paradigm of compute engines? Yeah.
Okay, I'll start. I can take both of them. So we'll start with dictionary sharing. No, we're not going to share dictionaries because even if right now 2 columns have the same set of values, we don't know if the next refresh they'll have the same set of values. So we generally, we just cannot make that assumption. So we and share and then rip it apart and duplicate is very hard. So no, we're not going to be sharing. Vertipack was built for in-memory compute, but I can tell you that we are working right now on allowing Vertipack to go beyond the memory limits. And some really exciting work is going on. And you'll start seeing it in coming in stages into the service. But this will really allow Power BI, and the goal is that we really allow Power BI to scale much higher than it can right now with dataset sizes. Not that a lot of people reach the limits that we have, but sometimes it's even psychological. That if people tell you only can do 400 gigabyte in Power BI, and even 400 gigabyte is really 4 terabyte because Power BI compresses the data so well. It's still saying, well, I need more, and I'm worried that I'll run out of it, and then what will happen, bad things, and so forth. So we want really to take away the psychological barrier of the limits, and so we will go beyond memory limits, allow you to basically page to disk. That's an investment. The other thing that we certainly you're going to see. We already announced the work that we're doing around aggregations, the work we're doing around hybrid tables, which is really, really awesome. Those 2 things are going to be both accelerating performance, but also the hybrid tables allows you to sustain virtually real-time results with excellent query performance. I call it the negative latency. We sometimes ask ourselves, how long does it take between when you update the source data, like the relation database, the data warehouse, until the users of Power BI see the results? And we typically compare and say, well, we updated data and now we run the query in SQL Server, and we look at the results and say, okay, so now we have 1 result in SQL Server. How long until the Power BI users see the same results? Negative latency means that you update the results, you update the data in SQL Server, you run the query in SQL Server, you run the same essentially query in Power BI, and Power BI actually shows you the results faster than SQL Server shows you the same result immediately after you update it. So we say it's negative latency. It's actually the Power BI sees faster than the SQL users see the same data. So that's kind of where we're heading. So with hybrid tables, you get that negative latency effect, that it's more real time than just using directly against the queries, SQL queries against the data warehouse. So these are the things that I think are coming, very exciting, allowing you to really scale very far, get the performance. So that's kind of where we're heading on the storage level.
Thank you. I'm not sure. I'm kind of, there's so many questions. I'm kind of losing the track.
I'm going to go out of order then to help, because Matt Farrow's just asked one that I would also like to know the answer for. So I'm cheating.
There's a question.
So, host's prerogative, I think it's called. Matt, do you want to jump on and ask your question?
Yeah, I can. Let me see if I can get my camera on. You have to excuse my bedroom though. 1 second. Am I here? Yeah, so Power Apps has got a lot more functionality for dynamically treating objects, like hiding and showing objects, changing colors, all sorts of things. It's really well integrated into the product. Are there plans to do similar things in Power BI? I know you kind of touched on the PowerFX stuff a bit, but is this something that's in the plan?
Yeah, I think about 3 years ago, Amir tapped me on the shoulder and said, we should add a way to dynamically set the visibility of a visual based on a DAX expression. And it was one of the first things I was thinking about when we started looking at conditional formatting generally across the visuals. And we built that in a way that we can apply it to any property of any visual. And it's just been a case of, well, we have to go and do a bit of work for any of those properties that we want to set, or particularly for new types of property. You've seen so far, pretty much all the conditional formatting has been around colors or strings, things like titles. We totally want to, and we've got plans to do this in the next X months, to go and extend that to things like, font styles and other properties like axis ranges. And visibility is definitely one that we're considering as well. There's an extra layer of complexity, it's not quite the right word, of, okay, if you want to test whether a visual should be visible, you've got to run a query for that. And visible, you've got to run a second query. So we're doubling the number of queries on any visuals, or we kind of wrap it in together and then, well, I'm running a query for a visual that might not even be displayed, which feels a little bit inefficient. So we need to go and do design work on that. But yeah, in general, it's something we're hoping to do at some point. And just a question to get into it.
Thanks.
That's great. Thank you. And can I ask Lars to come and ask you a question about deployment pipelines? Or I could ask. Well, I'm just going to go and ask by saving time. So last question is, as you mentioned, Amir, deployment pipelines are widely adopted already, but will deployment pipelines coming to Power BI Pro the near future? With a question mark at the end. No.
No.
I mean, I just wanted to ask that one because many clients also ask, so that's why I thought that's a good question. And there is another question is, thank you for sharing your passion for this great product with the users. Will MS employees getting a Tabular Editor 3.0 license? I don't know if it would be funny to ask.
That's a great question. That's a great question, and we should have a conversation about that. Was that Alex who asked that? I missed that.
No,
One of the Alex.
don't think I could. No, I can't. I don't think I can say a name right. It's
No.
There are many.
We love Tabular Editor, and we love what Danielle and Capacity have been doing there, and the support of the whole community in building it. And it's very exciting. Their last version, which is a paid version, but people have to get paid for their labor, so that's fair. And it's really amazing work that they've done, and so we love it. No, we are not going to buy everybody licenses. Okay, so that's not going to happen. But I tell you, I hear that if you are an MVP, you're in the title for Microsoft, an MVP of Power BI. Danielle and Capacity will give you a free license. So here you go. You know what to do.
Ah, okay, that's good to know.
There's an incentive for everybody else in the community to pull out their community chops and get the MVP certification.
Cool. And is anyone else wants to come on the camera and ask their questions?
Is it Tripana or
Yeah,
Ray? you've got your hand up. Did you want to go next?
Just wanted to start. Yeah. So I have two questions. So let's start with the easier one. One is there any plan to bring folders or folder structure in Workspace? Because especially for self-serve, it's really, so right now I'm using navigation, but still it will be easier with folders where people just go and see their folders and artifacts inside it.
Yes, so it's actually very high on the list of the user voice, and it's something that we are looking at. The two somewhat related but also different asks that we have. One is around the ability for different people, when you deploy the application, different people to see different content that comes from that, that comes from that workspace. And that's something that we are working on right now, and hopefully by the end of the year we'll be able to do that. The other one is to organize the workspace itself into folders. That's also something we are looking at. It's going to take a bit more work, but it's certainly very high on our list on the things that we care about, and we're going to act on.
Okay, and the second one is like when we were talking about the auto scaling, like with the Gen 2. So for the financial confidential data, when we deal with, so they have a peace of mind with a dedicated capacity now. So if we say about like going beyond the dedicated capacity, is there any security concern that you feel like the data is moving? It is internally managed within IBM, within Microsoft, but is it like anything security concern is there when data is moving beyond their dedicated capacity?
We went through a lot of security review on that, and we feel very, very confident that the data is very, very, very well protected in multiple tiers of defense. I don't think you have anything to worry about, really.
Okay, thanks. I can assure my clients. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, very good.
Thanks for your answer.
Cool.
Right, who have we got next? There are so many comments now in the chat. It's a little bit difficult to follow because we've got quite a lot of Microsoft people in the team who are. Yeah, go, Amir, if you can see one, grab one.
Mark Bland, you want to ask your question? You raise your hand.
Oh, I think Mark might have already.
He already went, right?
Yeah, but
yeah.
Had your hand up earlier.
Sorry about that.
Sunil, do you want to ask yours?
Hi, yes. So I just wanted to check any plans on taking the Power BI desktop to the cloud. Any timeline?
Yes,
no.
We are.
Yes.
It's almost like the Power BI desktop to the cloud, but we are working on full authoring in the cloud.
Right.
So yes, very high priority. A lot of work is going into that, so people will not have to download the desktop. They can do the authoring directly in the browser. They can do it across platform. I know some people want to use other operating systems than Windows. So yes, so things are. A lot of people writing a lot of code to make it happen. Let's say this way.
Okay, thank you.
And you've seen the initial fruits of that already in the quick create experience on top of SharePoint lists, being able to paste stuff directly in the browser. That was the first step of that. We're getting we kind of work from the model layer upwards of kind of, hey, can we get some, just paste some data in, we'll generate a model for them and have it connected to everything else in a Power BI service. That's the first step. And then, as Amir said, yeah, the rest of the authoring experience is out. So that you can edit your DAX measures and so that you can create relationships, all that great stuff.
Fine. Okay, thank you. And then, sorry, one tiny question. Sorry, one other question. On Excel.
Sunil, just before you ask that,
sorry,
just before you do, I just want Will to clarify one thing, just because there's some other comments in the chat. You're not planning on retiring desktop though when it goes into the cloud, right?
No. There will always be a case for offline. I'm working locally. I've got a bunch of CSV files on my desktop. I don't want to have to upload them all just to do some analysis on it. Desktop won't go away.
If anything, I would say almost the other way around. I expect desktop to become more and more pervasive, more like the Office family of products. You know, hey, even though we have Excel web app, we still all use Excel desktop, right? So I think that you'll see the same thing. And one of the direction we are always looking at is saying, how can we close the gaps between how the desktop works and how the rest of the Office apps work? We already made a huge amount of progress across many dimensions, but we are constantly looking for even more opportunities to make Power BI just a natural part of the Office family with no weirdness about it. So you'll see more and more of that happening.
Okay, so my other quick question was, if I've got an Excel file in OneDrive as my data source, at the moment, it takes a while for it to refresh in the service. Are there any plans to make it so that it's similar to direct query? So that it's instantaneous?
I don't think we're doing direct query. We might be looking to see why it takes a while to refresh and reduce the time. But for direct query, we really need a query processor to do that. Excel is not a database; doesn't have a query processor, so we don't really have that capability to do it this way. But having the change in Excel reflect faster across the system is something that we should certainly take a look at. It wasn't on my radar too much, but it's, again, integration with Excel is very high priority for us. So whenever we hear that there's a gap, we kind of pay attention.
Yeah, because a lot of people are using a shared version of Excel on OneDrive. It would be great to see the reports come up quicker. Thank you.
You could probably do something today using Power Automate, like using Power Automate's triggers to listen for changes to that Excel file, and then kick off the refresh of the Power BI dataset that's connected. So at least then you're not relying on the scheduled refresh within Power BI to poll every hour or 15 minutes or whatever. You're getting kind of a push mechanism rather than a pull.
Right. Okay. I'll try that. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And there is another question from Gustavo Leo. I'm butchering all the names, but do you want to come on the camera or unmute and ask a question? Right, I'm gonna ask, is there any forecast to use Visual Code as Power Query dev tool, not just like a notepad? I mean, that I didn't quite actually.
A real.
Oh, you mean like using
Studio
Code, VS Code? Okay.
VS Code. Okay. VS Code. I don't know. I don't know.
I'm trying to work it. I'm trying to think of exactly what you're asking for there. You're saying, hey, I want to use VS Code as a way of managing my M scripts that are then going to get deployed into a Power BI solution, into a Power BI data set. Not anything that I know of. I mean, I don't think we're planning on anything at the moment.
Oh, yeah. You see us scratching our head for full transparency. The Power Query team is a sister team of Power BI. So we're the amazing people. We work with them very closely, but we are not always top of, we don't remember exactly their schedule and their priorities. So I just don't, we kind of scratch. So I said, did they ever say something about that?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. We have two last questions. I'm very sorry we can't get to everything. Brian, do you wanna ask your question quickly?
Hello, how are you?
Great.
Very well, thank you.
Good to see you. Sorry, just stepped away from the table there. Quick question. When we're trying to set up a bunch of chart visuals or something like that, you want the legend to go down, say, the right-hand side, but it grows according to the length of the categories that are in your legend, and so then your x-axis is going all over the place, and you have to jump through hoops to try and get x-axes to line up. I suppose the small multiples sometimes get you around that, if it happens to be the same thing that you're measuring over. But yeah, just wondering if there's any plans to try and allow us to specify the limits to which a legend can render.
We did some designs a little while ago around separating out different parts of the visual, like the title, the plot area, the axis size, the legend, and have some more control over fixing the amount of, like, the percentage of the height to the visual that any one of those things takes up, and kind of saving those as properties that you can then edit and kind of be sure on, and not letting them automatically adjust. We didn't. We did some designs. It's as far as it got. We just never got around to prioritizing it. It's a good idea. Yep. I'm sure it's on the ideas forum. I feel like I've seen that somewhere, but not something we're planning anytime soon.
No problem. I mean, obviously, you sometimes pay for that in terms of fiddly design work. Then it's nice the way you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. It just kind of rescales, but sometimes it can be frustrating. Cool.
Have an advanced option. Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And next, can I ask Kevin to come on the...
Very quickly, because we've got 1 minute left.
Yes.
Because I know Amir has got a meeting.
Yeah.
I've not managed to turn my camera on, I'm afraid, but subscriptions, currently, they're not doing the right job for us, and we don't have bigger paginated reports available to us in our subscription, and don't want to learn how to use them. Is there any love coming for subscriptions in terms of multi-page attachments or anything like that?
Yes, now there is plan to have significant work done on subscriptions. One of the things that we are very excited about is data-driven subscriptions. So you can, whether the report goes out or not to the subscription by condition, different people on the same subscription, different people getting different data. For example, you can imagine every sales rep getting their own opportunities, even that not through role-level security, but actually through, by just associating filters with people. So yeah, so a bunch of things are happening in subscription that we have in the pipeline. We are excited. We've been wanting to do it for a long time. So stay tuned. It's not immediate, but it is pretty high on the priority list.
Fab. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. I think we need to wrap it up there.
Can I sneak in a question?
Sorry?
Can I ask my question?
Sure.
So last question. So in one of the MBAs, you showed us within the Power BI report, you have the scrollable effect where, so you, without increasing the page size, you could scroll down, add more things. Is that gonna come?
That was one of the modes for grouping visuals. It was when we released the groups feature, the grouping feature as it was. We were kind of looking at, okay, what sort of feedback are we hearing from people, and it didn't actually come up that often that was a useful kind of the most useful of the three kind of different modes that we showed. So we never got around to going and finishing it and implementing it. Good feedback. Thank you for bringing it up again. I haven't heard about that for years. So good comment.
Cool. Just want to ask. Well, on that note,
that's
thank
like
you
a good
guys.
opportunity for a contributor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amir. I got the hint, Will.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, and thank you all. Thank you.
Great questions, everybody. See you later.